While almost all Fey are tricksters where humans are concerned and the mood takes them, some actually specialize. Today let's talk about a few. The Shellycoat is a legend from the Scottish lowlands, described in Sir Walter Scott's minstrelsy of the Scottish border. He's a water boggle who haunts freshwater streams, and his clothing is covered in shells that clatter when he moves, thus the name. The Shellycoat lives to play pranks and is primarily known for doing little else. In one account, he leads two men astray all night by pretending to be some poor soul lost in the woods near a stream. The men kept following a voice that proclaimed, "Lost, lost," all night as they followed and tried to find the victim, who was always just out of sight. Near dawn, they finally reached the Shellycoat, who jumped out of the water and ran down the hill, laughing. Personally, I'd find that behavior extremely annoying, but that sort of thing is all good fun to the Shellycoat. Unlike some members of the Fey clan, he never actually harms anyone with his pranks. He does, however, waste your time and laughs at you for being gullible enough to let him do it. Another of this select group is the creature known as the Headley Cow. One thing you need to understand up front is the Headley Cow is not a cow. It is a fairy who often chooses to look like a cow as a way to set up its pranks. So what does the Headley Cow actually look like? No one knows. It apparently did, however, haunt the village of Headley in the Derwent Valley in Northumbria. Whether it still does is hard to say, as the original village was ruined by the plague of 1666 and rebuilt further up the hill. So far as we know, the Headley Cow had nothing to do with all that. One of the Headley Cow's specialties, and so its name, was to impersonate a farmer's favorite milk cow and show up to be milked on schedule. Then kick over the pail, slip its halter, and run off laughing. It never seemed to tire of this particular prank. In another variation of the same trick, it would appear again as a favorite milk cow and lead the milkmaid in a merry chase as they tried to catch it at milking time. It would finally allow itself to be caught, and then, as with the farmer and just as the milkmaid thinks everything's settled, it would kick over the pail, slip its tie, and run away again, laughing. Even so, the Headley Cow was not, so to speak, a one-trick bogey. Another trick was to appear as a sheaf of straw to an old woman gathering sticks for fuel. She'd pick it up, but as she carried it, the sheaf would become heavier and heavier like certain Japanese yokai, until she had to set it down, at which point the sheaf would shuffle away from the woman, shouting and laughing. You weren't safe in the farmhouse either. The creature would pull tricks like imitating the voice of a servant girl's sweetheart, unraveling the knitting, sabotaging the spinning wheel, and giving the cream to the cats. Well, naturally the cats didn't mind, but to everyone else this was annoying in the extreme. This, however, was nothing compared to how annoying it could be during the birth of a child. It would harass the man sent to fetch the midwife, frighten the horse, and later appear at the window in some form or other to mock the new mother. This one a little beyond annoying, but even so, again, there was seldom any lasting damage done. Just anger and aggravation at a really bad time. Another stunt was to appear as someone's favorite, or only, cart horse. Once it was hooked up to the wagon, it would let itself draw the wagon for a bit, then slip out of its harnesses and leave the cart stuck in the road as it ran away, giggling at the person left stranded. In one instance, some young men in the area were going to meet their sweethearts when they believed they saw them walking ahead of them in the distance. They tried to catch up, but never quite could. You guessed it, this was an illusion created by the Headley Cow. In only one reported case did the person being pranked get the better of the Headley Cow, as reported in Joseph Jacobs' More English Fairy Tales in 1890. The Headley Cow played a series of pranks on an old woman, but in every instance she had a viewpoint on the incident that lessened the sting. Her optimism finally crested after its last prank, where she exclaimed the following:
"Well, I do be the luckiest body hereabouts. Fancy me seeing the Headley Cow all to myself, and making so free with it too. I can tell you, I do feel that grand."
It's not reported whether the Headley Cow ran away laughing this time. Maybe it did, but the joy and satisfaction of it had to have gone flat, at least a little. A brag is a kind of shape-shifting goblin, common in the northern counties of England, which is known for its hobgoblins. The Picktree Brag was so called because it haunted the village of Picktree in Durham County. Perhaps it still does, though Picktree is now a suburb of the larger village. The Picktree Brag was known to sometimes take the form of a calf with a white kerchief around its neck. Other favorite forms were a donkey, a pit pony, and a coach horse, though it did also appear once as 4 men holding a white sheet. It was also known to appear as a man without a head, which had to be a startling sight. Apparently, as you'll see shortly, the Picktree Brag had an interest in white. One account listed in the Folklore of the Northern Counties by William Henderson, 1879, concerns an older man who had a white suit. Yet almost every time he wore it, he would encounter the brag, which was up to its usual tricks and devilment. Naturally, the man decided that the suit was unlucky, at least so far as the brag was concerned. Nevertheless, he wasn't going to stop wearing it just because of something like that. Finally, he was returning from a christening wearing that white suit, and he met the brag again, this time appearing as a horse. Being both irritated and a brave man, he decided to show the brag who was boss by riding it. This did not end well. The brag gave him a very rough ride and finished it by bucking him off into a pond, which probably ruined the white suit for good and all. The brag then pranced away, giving a literal horse laugh as it went. While the Shellycoat, Headley Cow, and Picktree Brag are generally classified as solitary goblins, the Northumbrian Dunny is a little different. In many accounts, primarily drawn from the Denham tracts by Michael Denham plus William Henderson's Folklore of the Northern Counties, the Dunny is not a goblin or other fey, but the ghost of a human border reaver. This man supposedly lost his life while raiding a granary. As a result, he died without revealing the location of his hidden cache of loot, and so was doomed to haunt the area. Whether this part was true or not, the Dunny nevertheless had all the goblin attributes of a trickster and shapeshifter. In this aspect, he shared many of the habits of the Brag and the Headley Cow. Mrs. Balfour, in County Folklore, 1891, claimed that it often appeared as a donkey like the Picktree Brag, but others claim it preferred the form of a horse. As a horse, it would appear as the farmer's stolid and steady plow horse, though of course once it was fully harnessed for the plowing, it would suddenly disappear and only be seen in the distance galloping away. At other times it would take the form of another horse when it was time to fetch the midwife. Unlike the Headley Cow, it would be perfectly well behaved while the midwife was being fetched. However, once the birth was over and the farmer was taking the midwife home, it would suddenly slip out from under them both, usually dropping them in a stream. Whether it really was a ghost or just another goblin is difficult to say. It is possibly a distinction without a difference, as it so completely assumed the role of a trickster goblin. Nonetheless, it was known to assume a semi-human form and sit swinging its legs over a local gravel quarry. Such behavior was never noted in its fellow tricksters. This could have been a hint of its human origins, or just a goblin killing time. It's a guess either way. One thing all these tricksters had in common, ghost or goblin, was the people who served as foils for its pranks were often inconvenienced, humiliated, and certainly embarrassed, but never seriously harmed, which could not be said in cases where the goblin was a redcap or a fachin. In dealing with such tricksters, it was probably best, like the old woman listed above in dealing with the Headley Cow, to find the humor in it and just get on with your life. At least with the tricksters, you'd still have one.